Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Kate, we'll give you the last word on this topic, but I think the imperatives for school choice are even broader than we are discussing, because it seems like American society is getting polarized on fundamental values. And some of those values are religious ones, as we've been discussing, but some of them are not religious ones at all. Questions of gender, to pick one topic. And if these trends continue of Americans drifting further apart from each other on topics that relate to how schools are going to be organized and the curriculums that they're going to teach, even if those are not religious topics that may or may not be affected by the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, maybe the answer there is still what we've been saying: school choice. Let parents and families and students take that money and get the education that they think is best for them.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, on Kim's point, I completely agree that we should be wary that the court will be willing to go as far as countenancing this 10 Commandments law. The case that we've been talking about involving the coach praying on the football field, I mean, that's a person exercising their own religious faith, which I think the court usually extends, much more protection to. We're just discussing now an action the state is taking versus an individual on public property. So it is a different set of questions. And I think we should really think the court will be reluctant to go that far. And I don't think, again, that Louisiana has given them a tempting case to do so. I think a separate question than whether it passes constitutional muster is the other one we're discussing, which is whether it's wise public policy, whether in a country as polarized as ours, where religion is somewhat on the decline, whether it's wise to try to elevate things like the 10 Commandments in public education versus allowing a much more pluralistic approach of school choice, where I can send my kids here, you can send your kids there, and get the kind of education we want. But I would add, too, that I still think the regrettable part of this is the failure to elevate founding documents as part of public education, which is not a First Amendment violation. And the state of civic education is so poor in public schools. I do think that even some of these documents, like we're talking about the Mayflower Compact and the Northwest Ordinance, are not getting their billing in public schools. Some of them, the Northwest Ordinance, is suffused with religious themes, but these are essential to passing down a conception of the United States that I think is important. So I do think there is a role for improving public education and the quality of it, but I think Louisiana is really just shooting at the wrong target here and going about it in the wrong way, in a way that's very sectarian as opposed to more general about the nation's history.
Let's turn to the primary elections taking place today, voters casting ballots as we tape this. Kim, when listeners turn on the news, turn on the TV tonight, what should they be watching for in these election results?
Well, I think the big one is in New York, in the 16th district, where Jamaal Bowman, who is a member of the Squad, has been quite controversial in recent years, is being challenged by County Executive George Latimer in a Democratic primary. Now, remember who this guy is. He recently pleaded misdemeanor to pulling a fire alarm in the house. He got himself in a lot of hot water last year when he denied that Hamas had raped Israeli women on October 7th. He's been found to have, back when he was about 35 years old, written this 9/11 truther poem. He's really quite unhinged, to put it mildly. And he's, in particular, in recent months, very much drawn the ire of groups like the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee because of his hostility toward Israel, what some would say would border on anti-Semitism. Now, this has become this very big race. A lot of money has poured into it because it's become a little bit of a test to see if you could get some of these ultra progressives beat in a primary. And people like Bernie Sanders have really engaged in AOC because they're very worried that if Bowman loses, that it's going to inspire more challenges against other Squad members. Bowman will see how that turns out, but this is a very stiff challenge to him.
Let's listen to a piece of Jamaal Bowman at a rally Saturday with Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in the Bronx.
We are not going to stand silent while U.S. tax dollars kills babies and women and children. My opponent supports genocide. My opponent and AIPAC are the ones destroying our democracy. And it is on democracy.
And here's a piece of what George Latimer is saying in one of his campaign ads.
I'm George Latimer, and whether you live in Portchester, Greenburgh, or Co-op City, we're fed up with the chaos that's hanging over our heads. Trump extremists in Washington and a congressman spreading lies and conspiracy theories. You know me. I took on the NRA to ban gun shows and reduce gun violence and led the fight to protect access to reproductive health care. I'm George Latimer, and I approve of this message because together we can break through the dysfunction and get real progressive results.
Okay, part of what's so remarkable about this is George Latimer there describing himself as a progressive. He says he wants to codify abortion rights and vote for green spending to transition away from fossil fuels. It's a pretty progressive agenda. He is just making a case, it seems to me, to these New York voters that they should quit putting up with being embarrassed by their congressman.
Yeah, I mean, it is notable. His challenger is not necessarily ideologically distinct on many issues. I mean, he does have on his website a section about supporting U.S. allies and engagement in the world, especially in Israel, in a way that obviously Bowman does not agree with. But I was really blown away by something that Democratic Rep. Richie Torres said about Bowman, who has been blaming AIPAC for pouring money into his primary race. And I think he put it quite succinctly. Jamaal Bowman's greatest problem is Jamaal Bowman. AIPAC did not illegally pull a fire alarm. Jamaal Bowman did. AIPAC did not vote against infrastructure. Jamaal Bowman did. AIPAC did not deny the Hamas rapes against Israeli women. Jamaal Bowman did. He's apologized for the latter, I believe. But this is a particularly spicy quote for a Democrat to be given about a fellow Democrat in Congress. So I think it does represent some hygiene on the Democratic Party's part that they are tired of the public relations that they are getting from Bowman and want to replace him with somebody who believes most of the same things but will cause them less of a headache.
Thank you, Kate and Kim. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.